Yo, I'm Mukala Kabongo live from Lynn, Massachusetts, and I'm on the chopping block at visceralchange.org.
Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of the Chopping Block. Sherrod Robbins, happy to be here. I got a very special guest in the building, to quote DJ Envy, my man Mukala Kabongo, as I call him, Mook for short. Mook, what's going on, man? How you feeling?
You know, I'm just out here living, man. Out here enjoying life, staying COVID free. You know, got another negative test. Staying healthy, man. It's it's nice out, so I can't be mad.
You're back there on the East Coast, right, Massachusetts?
Yeah, where you abandoned.
Listen, man,
you said I'm out of here.
I had a transition. You know, I wanted to go west. Went south first, then came west. Yeah. You said you had another negative test. You got to test regularly, or what?
Yeah, I always got to get these tests, man. I'm always around people too much. With the high school basketball, the fall basketball leagues, the high school football, it's just, and then being out in public too. So we always have events to film. So,
fair enough. You gotta be responsible with it. I think we all can appreciate that. And so you're the news director of Lynn Community Television, right?
Yes, sir. News director here. It's funny how I actually ended up in this position. So
we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to
that. It's a funny story, but yeah, I'm news director here. Also, we host a sports program. I'm the host of the sports program with my man Todd.
Okay.
And just a bunch of stuff here. We're doing a whole lot.
We'll chop it up for sure. We got plenty of time. I know the audience and my listeners want to hear that. So really looking forward to bringing that to fruition, and so folks can know a little bit more about you and some of the good stuff that you're doing. But let's take it back to the beginning. I always like to try to give my audience, my listeners, a little bit of a somewhat of a comprehensive look of who's in front of us. So Mukala Kabongo, a nice, strong, rich Congolese name, and you and your family moved here from the Congo when you were young. How much of that journey do you remember actually, and what did it mean to grow up, sort of transitioning into a new country?
I remember I have memories, when you have like flashbacks and glimpses and then certain things just come back full force. So I remember being there in Congo from the early part of my childhood. We did a lot of walking. And your kids were just out there playing. That's mainly what we did. Me and my brothers just out there playing. And then it was just one day I'm going somewhere with my mom. She leaves me off at the airport and I'm looking at her like, what's going on here? And she tells me, oh, you're going on this plane. I'm not going with you. And,
wow.
But yeah. So I'm just looking at her, I'm 6 years old. So I just start crying. I get on this plane and I'm sitting next to a white guy. First time ever seeing a white man in my life besides on TV. Yeah. A white man that spoke French. Too. So what do you call those people that go to the flights with the children?
Like missionaries?
No, like they guide the children to wherever the destination is.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant folks who were doing the work. Don't know.
Yeah, I guess he was one of those. He was one of those folks. So he was the person that had to look out for me. So, and I remember getting to Boston, landing in Boston, and my uncle picked me up, and everything was just, we go to my uncle's house in Boston and stay there for a while. I meet my dad for the first time, and I'm just looking at him like, who is this guy? Because he left when I was young.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at him like,
in the story.
Yeah. So I don't know who he is until they tell me who he is. So it was an interesting transition for me.
And did you get right to Lynn, Massachusetts?
We got to Lynn probably a few months afterwards.
Okay, so you stayed in the city for a while in Boston.
Yeah, they lived in Roxbury. So
okay.
We were in Roxbury we was out there for a little bit. And at the time, my two older brothers had already came here. So they was already came.
They had.
Yeah.
You had some folks who can kind of guide you a little bit.
Yeah. So my oldest brother, he's 4 years older than me. Then my middle brother, he's 2 years older than me. Me and him were always together. So we went to school in Congo together.
Right.
And all that. So me and him were together. So, and then my mom came probably 3-4 months after us. And then I think that's when we came to Lynn.
Gotcha. And did you have to pick up the language, or did you already have some of that down?
English?
Yeah.
I ain't know a lick of English.
You know, like
the cool thing was my cousins, they were older, so they would talk to me. They speak to me in English, so you kind of started picking it up.
Right.
Yeah, but they threw me in the fire real quick.
It's the best way to learn, man. English is one of, if not the toughest language to learn, they say, you know, for various reasons, all the different rules. So you wound up settling, sort of, if you will, in Lynn a couple months after you touched base in the United States. And, you know, if you look at the demographics, right? So some of my audience knows, not everybody, but, you know, and as you already pointed out, right, I am from Massachusetts as well, from the sort of the next city over from you, Malden. And so we know Lynn to look a particular way, but the demographics actually have Lynn majority white, which you really wouldn't expect when you grow up in, you know, in the projects or in an adjacent city. But then we also have about 12% Black folks and 7% Asian folks, and it has a pretty heavy Asian population today, right? And that's diverse, really, by Massachusetts standards. So tell me about how your experience in Lynn now sort of shapes your development and your growth, whether it's through race, whether it's through class, whether it's from transitioning to a new country. Talk about that journey.
Yeah, so with Lynn, you know, Lynn is a city of 100,000 people. Lynn's a big city.
Sure.
So we were mainly in the downtown area of Lynn. And the area we grew up in, you got a whole bunch of different races there. You have a Black neighbor, you have a Spanish neighbor, you have a Cambodian neighbor, you have an Eastern European neighbor. So we have everybody over there, but then there's like a whole nother side of Lynn that's not like that. Right. And that's one side we never went to. Right. I didn't know exist until I got older. But growing up in Lynn, you just learned that there were different types of Black people. I didn't know nothing about Haitians, Jamaicans, none of that until until I met some. Like one of our best friends that lived across the street happened to be Haitian. And because I'm looking at it, they black, we're all the same and stuff. But no, that's not the case. We may be the same, but the cultures are different. So it was that, and it also helped that one of my teachers, my ESL teacher, he was also Haitian, and he happened to be a pastor. And this is all just a big coincidence. He happened to be the pastor at the church that my friend across the street lived at.
Oh,
yeah. So he was one of the pastors. So one day he invited my mom to the church, and we went there. That's how we got connected into the Haitian community.
Oh, okay.
And all that. Yeah, started building those bridges, and then that's how we just started making friends. A whole lot of the friends I made were pretty much from that church. Even folks that weren't Haitian attended that church at one point.
Sure.
So we were just getting a whole learning about each other. I'm learning about their culture. They started to learn about my culture.
Right.
And then when you pick up, we start going to school. Now I'm seeing Asians, like Cambodians, Vietnamese, Chinese, all that. So now I'm seeing a whole different group of kids that I wasn't seeing beforehand, you know, because by the time we got here, school was like halfway out. Right. So when we first started going to school, now I'm seeing these different cultures. So I'm seeing, okay, this is different, and this is interesting, because now you're looking at everybody's different, but then everybody's kind of similar. Like the cultures, the way their parents raised them, the ethics, and it's all similar, but just a little different. And that's so unique.
And so you kind of slipped in how your mom sort of sent you off to school. So your mom wound up coming then to the US. How long after?
My mom came around the summertime.
It wasn't years later. She wound up coming.
No.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it was the summertime. So, and now she has to get in tune with the nation and with the country as well. You know, she's fresh out. She's trying to figure out what she's gonna do. Like one of her
Raise
goals
some
was
boys,
raise boys, find a career, find a job too. Cause you just come here, don't know the language, and you want to work and trying to figure things out. So
right.
It was a slow process for her. It was a lot harder for her than it was for us because she had to find work and learn the language, all this other stuff. All we had to do was go to school.
And plus, the multitude of identities she's bringing with her, being a woman, and a mom, and coming from Congo, but just a bunch of other stuff that is on top of that. So interesting. Were you ever able to capture over the years in conversation with your mom, sort of what her reasoning for sort of sending you and the boys and just really moving the family to the U.S. was?
She hated it over there.
Okay.
She didn't like it. She didn't like it over there. She was, every time I talk to her, because we haven't been back since we left.
Oh wow. Okay. That was one of my questions. So
okay. So one of the reasons why she says she had so many bad experiences over there and just bad memories that she doesn't want to go back.
Right.
So coming here, she just wanted to get the best life for herself because her goal was always to be a nurse. That was her goal. So she had to go to school too. So now she has to take these ESL classes. She got to figure out what she's going to do as far as schools and how she's going to navigate through that. And, when she started school, she knew English, but she didn't know English like that. And now you're adding in, she got to work too. Right.
And like I said, these confluence of identities and circumstances just begin to take shape. And now you're really either playing catch up or as Loaded Luck said, you get in the ring or get under the wing. One of the two.
I give it to her because she really, for her situation and everything that happened with her, there was points where she could have just gave up on everything.
Out, right?
Tapped out because it was so hard. And when your relationship doesn't work out later on, but get to that at a certain points, or you're not in the best relationship, it's like,
right.
I got worried about my boys. I don't know what's happening with my marriage because the person that brought me here, he was kind of doing everything.
Right.
And so it was weird for her trying to understand all that.
Right. No, that's really one of those things that you can really only understand if you've gone through it. You know what I mean? So shout out to Mom Dukes for sure. How's she doing? She living well, healthy?
Oh yeah. She's still doing nurse. She's a nurse practitioner, so she's just doing that. And then she got the side business going on with the real estate stuff.
Okay.
And she has a garden, so she runs a couple gardens. I think like 3 or 4 gardens. Yeah, so that's what she wants to do full time, is the garden.
Right.
But she's just, the work during the week takes up her time.
Gotcha. My man Mook's getting some phone calls. You need to take those?
No, everybody else got those.
Okay.
Yeah, it's whenever we get these phone calls, it rings through all.
It goes around. Okay, I know some folks. Just so the listeners know, Mook is in the office, so sometimes the phone's ringing. But he's here with us again. Thank you for joining us. You're a lifelong Lynn head, man. You're still there, right? Still in Lynn.
I'm still here. I gotta leave here and there too. I gotta leave for a while.
You gotta catch your breath, of course.
But yeah, I'm still here. It's Lynn's changing. As you know, last time you were in Malden, you saw how it's changing over there.
That G word.
Yeah.
G word, man.
They just knocked down a building over here. They were just knocking down, so that just means another high-rise building or luxury apartment is coming
through Malden this past summer, to visit the fam, because they hadn't met my son yet at the time, and so driving out there, getting into Malden, it was like, where am I? The exits on the highway changed. I mean, everything was just different, and I hadn't been in a while, so I was like, this isn't the place I grew up. And what does that mean though, Mook? I mean, is this for the better? I mean, talk to me. Thinking about your experience in Lynn and your journey, that gentrification. What's the goal here?
That's a good question. That's what we're all trying to figure out. That's what the people that's been here for a while, for the longest, trying to figure out, because they're seeing all these new apartments come in. They're seeing all these changes, and none of it is for them. They feel none of it is for them,
right?
Because to be honest, not everybody makes these big salaries over here. Some people are still working, just on working hourly.
Right.
That's how they get their pay, and they can't afford these. They can't afford these places, and they've covering all these meetings. They've made it known that they can't. A lot of people in the city can't afford these high luxury apartments that they're building here. And one thing I always say, a city's changing when you just see random people running or just riding their bikes in the middle of the day or at night. And that's what we're getting to.
You made a strong point there. This idea of, excuse me, they're instituting these high rises, right? This idea of, to use the French word, ameliorating, right, the city, but there are a slew of people who are like, but I can't afford it. So when I think about gentrification personally, you talked about people jogging, and you talked about sort of seeing the bikes come through, which is a fair distinction and a way to look at it. I've always likened it to like the skate parks that are popping up out of nowhere. You used to have the basketball courts, and once that basketball court went down and the skate park came in, that always told me that the gentrifiers are on their way, and it's really interesting when you see that, so having that experience.
Not only sorry to cut you off, not only when you see the skate parks, but when you see certain stuff being done to the roads, actually.
Right. Like the bike lane, you mean?
You start seeing bike lanes being done. Then you start seeing it, as you said, you start seeing the basketball courts start getting taken down. Now you start looking around, and everybody's just like, oh, the wave is coming.
Yep, it's on its way, and folks like us, especially Black folks, and we know, right? We know the signs, and we know where it's coming from. We've seen this in all over the country in various forms, And so, as a lifelong sort of Lynn native, you have an understanding of the city and how it shows up. I just have a question, man. What's the difference between Lynn English, Lynn Tech, and Lynn Classical, man? I've grown up across the way. We're like, this
is one question that always been, even folks that live here, they've always wondered that why we have so many high schools. Well, Lynn Tech is a vocational school,
of course.
So
that one makes sense.
They're the only trade school. We also got a private school, St. Mary's.
Okay, yes,
makes sense.
That makes
sense. Okay,
I think
now, so now we have Lynn English and Lynn Classical, and also we got a charter school too.
Okay, I don't think I knew that.
Kip Academy. Oh yeah, that one was that's fairly new. Kip Academy.
Kip Academy. Okay.
Yeah. So Lynn English is on the east side of Lynn.
Right.
Lynn Classical used to be in West Lynn, and then they built the whole new building up in Kings Lynn. That's kind of like near the Saugus line.
Got it.
And honestly, I can't tell you the differences. The only difference is they just want kids in certain regions to go that side of school, and then certain kids to go this side of school.
I was thinking of zoning.
Yeah, it definitely has to do with zoning. And then don't even get me started on middle schools. We have at least 3 or 4 middle schools as well, and all that. We have a lot of schools. And
that's clear.
One thing the folks, especially the athletes, that always question why we have so many high schools when we could have one high school, a big high school, granted, because you see cities like Brockton, they got a big high school.
Huge. Yeah.
Everett, one big high school.
Even Malden's high school.
You guys have 2. Yeah. Malden, you guys have 2. You got Malden Catholic and
Malden High, right? But even Malden High is big, yeah.
Yeah. So we always look at all these cities, and it's like it's kind of a disadvantage to us to have 4 or 5 different high schools, especially for athletics. Because in Malden, all the players, they're either going to Malden High, maybe go to Malden Catholic, or if they're really good, they go to like St. John's Prep or another school like that.
Yeah,
but
some will sneak off like Pope John and them. Yeah, right.
Yeah, but the majority of the talent stays within
the
either
city.
Malden High or Malden Catholic.
Right.
With us, majority of talent is all over the place.
Yeah, but it stays within Lynn, and you talked about Lynn being 100,000. And so, I'm wondering if, because I think about here in Tucson. I mean, you can do a trivia night on how many high schools there are. But, Tucson proper is, 533,000 people. And you incorporate the surrounding cities, you're at 1 million.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. But I wonder if
that makes sense
because Lynn has so many people, maybe it's worth exploring.
I think it definitely has to do with zoning, because I don't think they want people going so far away, traveling so far, because there's certain areas in Lynn that's really far to get to. So
and let's also not ignore, the role that redlining also plays in some of this too. You know what I mean? Like we also don't want these folks over here, in particular.
And that case could be made about Lynn Classical, because if you look at the demographic that goes to Lynn Classical and you look at the demographic that goes to Lynn English and even Lynn Tech, it's really different.
Right.
Lynn English is probably the most diverse school in the city.
Sure, I can see that.
And Lynn Classical, not as much. I mean, they have the diversity, but it's not as much. It's in Lynn Tech, they're also very diverse too, just because you have so many kids that want to get into, the workforce that go there. But even now, they're doing enrollments.
Right.
There's a cap to it. There's a cap to it. So kids that want to go there, they can't even go there. And if they want to go to St. Mary's, I don't know if their parent got the bread to put up $11,000 a year.
Then here we are, right? Wow. It makes sense for the size of the school, et cetera. But, I understand, your argument about, the talent, especially from a sports perspective, which I always got to give. I always have a special place in my heart for Lynn English, because I got I got a couple of firsts as a result of just the presence, man. And I mean, you're welcome to recount the story, but while I have the microphone, Lynn English was responsible for for me, really getting to college in some senses. I mean, I was recruited off of a victory from them, and I made the state tournament. Actually, the second round of the state tournament, thanks to Lynn English being so gracious and wanting their coach to retire early, and I was happy to assist in that any way I could. So
that was a funny. That game was quite hilarious. That game was just so hilarious. I think we had to win out a couple games towards the end of the season to get in the tournament.
That was a tough year, man.
Yeah, it was a tough year, and we had one senior on the team, but there was a bunch of sophomores and freshmen on that team. But that game, it was a pretty good game, but it was just ending.
It was. I mean, the early O's high school hoop in Mass, because Massachusetts doesn't have the best market for sports in general. Yeah. But the early O's, man, we're talking like a hefty Charlestown team. We're talking a hefty Newton North, Lexington. I mean, Duxbury. I mean, throughout the state. I mean, a few folks going to Quinnipiac, going all over the place. Even
Lawrence,
Lawrence
in there,
powerhouses, and when Waltham. Remember, the Pressies were floating around at that one particular year. They just wanted to show up and do some damage. Yeah. So it was a tough year all around. So credit to folks.
Yeah. Yep. I still talk to her. Every time I see my friend, I always remind her, like, remember when you got fouled?
Nobody got fouled.
Yeah, he hates when I bring that up because he gets so mad because he was like, "Yo, I got hit in my head." Like, I mean, that's basketball for you. Refs ain't gonna decide the game, though.
No, of course not. I hope not. And y'all played Lynn twice each year, right? Was they
Lynn Classical?
Not Lynn. Sorry, Salem in your conference a couple of years, right?
Yeah, we played Salem.
So we had to deal with them next. This was our first time ever playing them.
Oh yeah, they had that run. They had Salem. I think they won the conference a couple years in a row during that time. Yeah, I know they had some kids that went somewhere. I know the year before they had a kid that went to Harvard. They were pretty good. But Yeah, the matchups with Salem's are always good. It's just them dudes just once they get going,
they can let it go.
Yeah.
They can let it go. Yeah. All right. All right. Let's jump back on track here, man, because we can talk about it all day. So sticking back with Lynn, and then we're going to transition into some more of your journey, right? As you move into adulthood, coming from the Congo and then into Lynn, into Boston, and into Lynn, and then kind of indoctrinating yourself into what's perceptively to be American life.
Yeah.
Thinking about it as a Black man, a Black boy at the time, can you recount your first experience with what might be considered uniquely American racism and other classist and systemic issues? The first time you were like, why am I being judged for looking like this or showing up in this way when this was never my experience? Can you recount something like that?
Probably, in elementary, when you get teased for your name.
Right. Oh, yeah,
and
sure.
And all that's probably the first, but me, the kind of person I was just like, okay, whatever. I didn't really think much of it, but I think as I got old, maybe it started in like middle school or high school. My mom, it wasn't me. My mom, she went out for a job and she was just trying to get a job. And they didn't give her the job because of her name. And that she couldn't speak English that well. Like those were the two reasons why she didn't get that job. And it wasn't like it was some big time job. It was just just a regular job for her to work, make a little money. That's the first instance when she told me about that. That was the first time that I was just like, okay, this is it. Okay, I see how this is gonna go. This is interesting. This isn't how it's supposed to go, but I see. Yeah.
Like, what kind of reason is this?
Right? You guys have a now hiring sign. Somebody's
exactly.
Here. Somebody applied, wants a job, and you're refusing to give it to them because of that.
Because of their name, right?
Yeah, and then in school, it's like one time you got in trouble, and I was getting blamed for something. It definitely was not me, because I was in school. I was pretty much the quiet kid. I ain't do nothing. It was some other kids that those other kids that troublemakers, but they was looking at me like I did something wrong, and I'm just looking at the teacher like, no. But the teacher's questioning me. That's when you start seeing in education, and you're just like, why are you questioning me? I don't even bother anybody in class. I just sit here and mind my business.
Right.
Why are you bothering me with that? So it gets a little tricky. And one more incident that just popped into my head. This has to do with our housing. One time we were living somewhere, we pretty much got evicted. The landlord he was trying to raise the rent.
Oh, wow.
The landlord was trying to raise the rent. And at the time, they were just, he was this older white guy. He's trying to raise the rent on my parents. And my parents were just like, no, we're not going to pay that rent because there was no reason for him to raise the rent at all.
Right.
And they try to do that. So we pretty much got kicked out of that place. We had to live somewhere for a couple months before we found somewhere else. I remember that. And I was just like, I see these housing things and how this race could play a role in this, because there was legit no reason for that.
No reason. But he can't, but he can't outwardly discriminate, and by saying because you're Black, here's what's going to happen. So he has to, folks find subtle ways to do it. And you just look at it like this. Trying to make sense of it. Right. Exactly. Wow. Exactly. So then, your journey, right? You begin to understand how society shows up, and you adapt, and you play the game, as we talk about all the time, and then you find yourself at Salem State University, man, where we connect. Actually, I was working there myself as a grad student, as an assistant resident director, and I remember seeing you float around, I was like, "Hey, yo, man, you should apply to be an RA," because you were at the Men of Color initiatives that we were running. And I had the pleasure of leading a couple of those, or leading a couple of different institutions, but leading the one at Salem State in particular. And I remember being like, yo, you should, connecting and chatting. I mean, you should apply, man, to be an RA, and if your name's on the board, I'll look out for you. I'll make sure you get on there. And which is what, we worked together for a couple of years as a result. Talk about the time, man. Just your time in housing, just for a little bit as an RA, and what that meant for you, and maybe a little bit about all the journey you talked about coming from living in Lynn and some of those experiences. How did that help you connect or mentor some students?
You know how I even ended up at Salem. So I was at Curry College before, and I just, money reasons, I couldn't stay at Curry. Pretty much that was the reason.
I did a year there myself, so I get it.
Yeah, I couldn't stay there, so I went to Bunker Hill, took some classes there. Then my friend just kept telling me to apply. He had graduated from Salem State. He just kept telling me to apply. He's like, they'll accept you. You're Black. They're most likely going to accept you.
What?
Yeah, that was his reason. He was like, they'll most likely accept you because they're pretty lenient with the students of color that apply there. Yeah. So, and he knew somebody that worked in admissions.
Okay.
So I just ended up applying. Then I got there. I think the first semester was just me. I was just, go to class, go home, go to work. That's it. Go to class, go home. And then that one day I was just roaming around and I saw that sign for the men of color. I was like, this should be interesting. And it was late too. So I was already done with classes. So I was just like, let me stick around campus for this. So I stuck around there. I went to that and I'm just like, oh, some of these people I've just seen walking around.
Right.
Some of these people I've never seen before in my life. So I was like, this is interesting. But that was a good startup for me, just getting more involved in the campus activities and getting, because college is all about networking. And that was definitely a good networking thing. Met you there, met D Lane, Jay was there too, right?
Jay was there. Yep. Sean Newton.
Shout
out to Jay and Sean D.
Yeah, they were all there. Alejandro was there. Irv, met some guys there. So that was interesting. And then through that, I was like, let me. There's not, colleges already has issues with people of color doing stuff on campus. There's always like something that doesn't happen quite often, or if it does, it's not talked about. Like, let me stick around. Let me see what I can do, and let me connect with these guys and help them out too if they ever need me. So, and that's how me and Sherrod got connected. Started then. I think this next semester I got the housing. I got the housing thing.
Yep, second semester high. That's right. Yes, correct.
Yeah, it was the second semester, and that semester it was just like, because it was second semester. It was like, I'm just here right now. Figure it out.
Right.
I think the following year, the last year, I think that's when everything really started. I got more immersed into helping out people on the campus, getting more involved with the stuff you do. I mean, we had that Weekend Warriors stuff.
Yep.
That happened. We had our game night at Sherrod's.
Of course, always.
Sherrod's apartment, and that whole thing, it just helped me get to the college experience, even though I was a little older. So I was just like trying to chill out and me just do.
Your approach was different. I mean, it was seasoned, and you help guide folks. I mean, you were on the diversity floor your second year, right?
Which was also interesting. Some of them kids.
Well, you're spreading this message, right? That is at that time was really beginning to take off in the way we see it today. Not that it hadn't always been there. Just the presence of diversity was showing up in a different way around this time.
And some of those kids were good kids, but they were just a lot of confused kids that had no idea of anything about diversity. There were some that were interested and wanted to learn, and some that didn't. The ones that did actually came, they'd come to my room and they'll talk to me about it. And the ones that didn't usually, they usually just come
down the board,
tearing down the board, just messing with people's stuff. But that was all part of the campus experience. But I think I thoroughly enjoyed doing all that work, because we did put together some great programs, and there was some pretty good turnouts with some of those programs.
Well, and it's a big ups to you. Kristen was there. Maybe Janice was the third,
Kristen.
And Amber was on that floor.
I
think it was. So shout out to all y'all, man. You all were fantastic and really, really pushed that to the next level. And Dr. Oliver, shout out to Dr. Stephen Oliver, who was a faculty in residence there.
That can't forget the good doctor.
Can't forget the good doc.
He's the man. He's the man. But the campus life was definitely very, because you get so many, especially college, there's so many different personalities, so many different people from everywhere. So being a part of that, and just talking with the students. Well, the students that wanted to talk, because there were some they'll see me and they'll just give me the head nod, or they'll just wave
and keep it moving.
Keep it moving. But then there were those few that would always come in and talk to me. And then the three girls that were down the hall from me, they used to invite me to their room all the time, just to show me the random stuff that they're doing in there, or some random projects. I remember one girl, she had she loves sharks. I don't know why, but she loves sharks, and she had a megalodon, a cutout megalodon in her room. And I'm just like, why is it? I didn't know what a megalodon was.
Yeah.
So she was explaining it to me, and I'm just sitting there just like, wow, that is very interesting.
Huge.
And you are the first person that actually educated me on sharks. And you're the first person I've met that loves sharks.
All corners, man, all facets. Like you said, college has all walks of people, right?
Yeah, it was hilarious at the time, and some of them I still actually keep in contact with. And some of them I see around.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, but you form those relationships. I keep in contact with a lot of y'all as well. So without a doubt. Along with, obviously, in concert with your time as an RA and as a sort of in your student engagement side of the house, you were also completing your degree, which is why you went to Salem State in many ways in the first place. And you got your bachelor's in communication and mass media studies, right, from Salem State, and then you went on to get your master's from Emerson College, in broadcast journalism, which, by the way, is a wonderful school. We're talking company of folks like Bill Burr, right, Maria Menounos, Jay Leno. Dennis Leary, folks like that. Henry Winkler, even the Fawns shows up.
Sam Pressey, the GM of the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Sam Pressey.
Yeah.
For Salem State, Tom Thibodeau, for talking about hoop. So you talked about in the beginning, right? We first started, like, how to even get into this is a story in its own right. Talk to me about that. Did you always want to be a journalist? Because based on at least your adult path, it sounds like you wanted to. Really, what started you on this path to getting to where you are today?
At first, I wanted to do something in public health coming out of high school.
Okay.
First of all. Then I took a public health class that was 4 hours long. And
actually.
Yeah, I was like, no. But the thing was, I was actually going to double major when I transferred.
Okay.
But Salem State didn't have a public health program. So I was like, you know what, let me try this. Because to be honest, I was watching a basketball game one time, and the play-by-play guy was talking, and then they were talking about what they did in school.
Oh.
And one of them was like, oh, I majored in communications and stuff. I was like, oh, okay. If I want to do that, that's what I should major in.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's how I got into that. I should have done more education on it, because, man, this field is hard. It's definitely a very difficult field, but did that. And then the Emerson College thing, how I ended up there. So I was studying for the GRE. I was studying for that. And then in the midst of studying, I was like, I don't really want to take a test to go to college. So I was looking up schools. Emerson was always the school I wanted to go to, even at Pomo's high school. So one day I just called Emerson just to do a tour, and the lady told me, oh, we're not doing the GREs no more. It's not required anymore to take it to come here. And I was like,
around that time.
And I was just like, oh, okay. And then she goes on to tell me, like, and we're changing our journalism program. It's going to be an accelerated program, not the 2 years, but the 14-month program. And I'm just sitting there like, okay,
this is all designed for me.
Yeah, so I was like, this is perfect. So I applied, got the recommendations, and when they accepted me, I was like, oh, okay, this is serious now. This is really serious.
Right.
So, and I was still like, I still couldn't believe that I got into journalism. I was talking to my mom. I'm like, I can't believe they just accepted me, and I'm going to grad school. I can't believe that right now.
It's a wonderful feeling when you think about, like, the whole journey itself.
Yeah, that just getting to that point. But that's another place I am so grateful that I went there, happy with the professors and the people I met, because the grad school journalism program, especially accelerated one, man, it's not for the weak. And if you don't have tough skin and can't take criticism, it is not for you, because
it's accelerated for a reason.
Yeah. So much work in a short period of time. You have to be really focused, and they really try to, and they have a reputation. So the school doesn't want to put people out there in the world that's not gonna, represent them well in their program.
Sure.
So I enjoyed it, and it was a small class, but everything that we learned in that program, I use to this day at different capacities with what I do now. And I was happy because not many African Americans, Black males get a master's degree. I think it's
correct.
Yes, statistically, it's really low.
Slow.
So for me to be able to do that and just accomplish that was really great. And I think it just shows, because it just shows us, when you put your mind to doing something, you could actually do it.
Yeah, man. And I was excited to see it happen. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I was amped, man. But,
yeah, who was more excited? My mom was more excited.
Of course.
You should have seen her on graduation day, like the day we were graduating. I was getting ready and she was already up, and she's just,
it's huge.
She's just a big smile on her face. She's like, get up. Like, I got dressed, I'm getting ready to leave. She's taking pictures. She's just like, wait, like making sure I looked right, just making sure. I'm like, oh, relax.
Oh, think about the story better than anybody, man. Think about the journey for her.
The journey. And what's also cool is she got her master's and I got my master's too. So
nice.
She was the first to get it. She got hers in 2012 from UNH. She got hers. Good. Yes. So she was extremely proud that me specifically got one as well, because the whole they named me after her father. So
yes, lots of significance. I mean, it's also a sense of affirmation in a way that's like, I brought us here for a reason, and this is the reason why it's paying off. So I could see that being something there. Let's talk about your job a little bit, man. As news director, what do you do? You mentioned you oversee a couple of programs. I had the pleasure of being on one, After the Whistle, last year. But talk to us a little bit about what you do and what's expected of you, and how, what Lynn Community Television provides to the community in general.
Yeah, so let me just tell you how I even ended up with being in this position. So I started here. I was interning here when I was at Emerson, my last semester at Emerson. Mm-hmm. I was doing an intern here. I literally was walking. I was going to school one day, going to the bus station, and I just see this building. I see the sign, because it was never there before. I see it, because they were a whole different entity before becoming Lynn Community Television. So, and they had just moved to this location. So I just walked in and I asked if they offered internships, and the director at the time wasn't here, but some of the guys that worked here, they were like, yeah, just come back tomorrow and talk to the director. So I did that, talked to the director, got the internship. He was really nice. He taught me a whole lot. And he was encouraging too, like for me to be on camera, to do camera stuff, because I didn't want to do camera stuff beforehand. Right. And then after the internship was done, he came up to me one day. He's just like, so what's next for you? What are you gonna do? I'm like, I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna find out, see what's next. He's like, would you be interested in, working here full time with us? I was like, sure, why not?
Sometimes that's how it goes. Yeah, yes,
yeah, because honestly, I didn't have there was no plan for after graduation. It was because you're still searching for jobs and stuff. So I'm just like, you know what? Let me just take this first job that comes to me, and we'll just go from there.
Right. Of course.
Yeah. So then let's fast forward. He leaves. He gets a teaching gig. So he's teaching media at a middle school.
Okay.
And we get a new director here, and so the new director comes. We have a meeting, and then he's just like, all right, guys, this is what we're gonna be doing here. We're gonna start a news program. Mukala, you went to Emerson.
you're going to be the news director.
Just like that.
Just like that. Legit, just like that. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm the news director. So we started with that. Wow. And so with that, I put together the shows. I gotta write the script, put together the rundown and all that. And before, we had somebody that was on camera that was doing it. That was the anchor. We had an intern here. She was doing it. So I was pretty much the person behind the scenes, writing everything for her, right, and doing all the edits and all the B-rolls and all that. I was doing that for her. But then she graduated. She got a better job. So I had to do this. So I had to go on and be the anchor for a little bit. So, and then we had to get somebody else. We had to find some other people to do it. We had auditions. We had auditions and stuff. We did that. We found somebody, and then I don't know what happened. The lady said she had some other stuff, so it became another thing. We had to do it again. The cool thing was, in this position, that going to networking events, I met some people. I met one girl. She was working at NBC. Yeah, NBC in Boston. She was working there.
Yep.
And she just wanted to do more on camera stuff because she was doing behind the scenes. So I just told her, "Oh, just come on down whenever you have time, and you could be our anchor, and I could help you do field work and stuff."
Sure.
You know, we go out. So she did that. She did that for like a couple months, and she got a good job out of it now. Now she's like traveling the country doing NFL work for that. Yeah. So. And then since then, it's just been me doing the anchoring. I write the scripts, I do the anchoring, I edit and all that. So that's one aspect of the job. And then the other aspect of the job is getting community events. So me and one of my other coworkers, we go out whenever there's community events. We go out there, we film it, we produce pieces for it. And if there's forums, like right now, there's elections. We're having our local elections. Last night, I moderated a forum. So this is my second time this is my second or third time doing these moderating forums. So we got 3 more. Yeah, so we got 2 more of those that I'm going to be moderating. We did that, and yeah, that's basically it. I do a lot. They have me do a lot.
What's up, man?
And the sports program is just something that it was just an idea that the old director had. We both like sports, and we just wanted to have a sports program and talk about it. And we just started doing it, and it's become a pretty good hit. The student athletes like the segments.
Of course,
the segment
had a few folks on too.
Yeah. We try to get it. It's the thing I wanted to do with that segment was highlight the student athletes, because I know back when I was in high school, they had a guy who did it, but it wasn't like to this extent. Like he's still around. Like he does the play-by-play and stuff like that, but he doesn't do the interviews with the student athletes no more.
Right.
I think it stopped. So what I want to do is just give them a little spotlight to just highlight, and this is good for them. Because some of the stuff I do, they could use it for their college.
That. Yes, exactly. Right. It goes a long way. That's a great way to give back, man. You're also a multi-award winner for the work that you do within journalism. Is there one that's most significant for you more than others?
Listen, there was actually this award I got, this plaque I got earlier a couple months ago. I wasn't expecting it. I was out filming something, and I remember the guy from the organization told me that they were going to do something for me because I filmed. They had a Super Bowl for their youth football program.
Right.
They had a day for a Super Bowl game, so I filmed a few of those for them. And then he told me one day they'll just do something for me, and I'm just thinking, oh, they might just at their ceremony they might just do whatever. Yeah, just give me a shout out or something like that. So he saw me, and just this was so coincident. He was coming out of City Hall, and I was across the street finishing up, about to leave, and him and his partners, they come up, and then he starts talking to me, and he's giving a speech, and I'm just like, I'm looking at him like, and then after he's done, he's like, here's this plaque that we wanted to present to you for all the work that you've been doing in the community. And we just wanted to show our appreciation for you. And I was just like, oh, it completely caught me off guard.
and I was surprised because I was not expecting it at all. So I was just, oh, okay. I didn't even know what to say. I was just like, wow, thanks. Like they caught me off guard with that one. So that one was probably the most important one.
Yeah, the community work, man. When you get honored for that, it goes a long way. I mean, it really, because in many ways that's the goal, especially when you talked about wanting to give back to the students. Powerful. So I want to ask you a couple of critical questions here as we begin to close out this particular interview. So as a Black man, and yet also a member of the media, what have you seen, if at all, what have you seen that has either affirmed some of the beliefs that are out there within the communities of color in the Black community about how the media really creates like a racialized narrative that's extremely oppressive? What have you seen from being a part of the media now that affirms that? And maybe what have you seen that might challenge that makes you say, actually, this isn't as true as I once thought it was? Or does it favor one way or the other?
That's a really good question. Okay, so I have a couple examples. So in covering, so we, there's a lot going on in Lynn. So especially with the elections coming up, and covering them, it's not so over for me. It's not more so the media that's making these racial divide or these racial anecdotes. It's the people.
Okay.
It's the people, but they want to put the blame on the media. So everyone complains about I'm speaking about these elections. This is the example of these. So everyone complains about the politicians, how there's not many representations, in city hall, within the city council. But then when there's an opportunity to make those changes, to get the representation, the same people that argue, they don't show up to make the change. They don't show up to vote. And we do our parts because we highlight everybody. We make sure we highlight each candidate. If it's a white candidate, Black candidate, Spanish candidate, Asian candidate, we highlight everybody. We let people know these are the people that are running. This is what their platform is. This is what they have to say. And it's just disheartening because the people, after we do all this work and people don't show up to vote. And even sometimes the people running, they don't even take the time to utilize our resource. People always say the media doesn't do this, the media doesn't do that. But for us, we give people the platform and we encourage them to come on and talk to us about your platform. Like we have candidate profiles where we could talk to the people specifically. You know how many of some of these candidates did refuse or did not even bother to make appointments with us to come on and do their profiles so the public could know who they are? Especially, it was more disappointing for some of the candidates of color that didn't do that. And then we'll go on our Facebook page and then people will try to blame us. Like, why aren't you guys highlighting this person or this person? And we're just like, we've given everyone the same ample opportunity to come on and talk about their platform, why they're running. And so many of these folks, they want to blame us. So I have another perfect example. I was out at an event and one guy came up to me and he told me that our organization is biased against him. And I'm just like,
why do you say that?
What are you talking about? So the guy he's running against, he's on the board member. He's one of the board members here. So when we do the pictures and stuff, we had to put like a disclaimer to let everybody know this candidate is part of the board member of Lynn Community Television.
Right.
So we put an asterisk next to his name, and then under it was an explanation why there was the asterisk there.
Right.
So the guy was complaining. He said, "Oh, he has asterisks next to his name, and I don't." And I'm just like, "Yeah, because he's part of the board here, and you are not."
And you said that
and then he goes, yeah. And then he goes on to tell me, oh, that's why I don't do nothing with you guys or give your platforms any opportunity to interview me. And I'm just like, you're only hurting yourself because of that. You can't, but you can't blame us.
So people's, at least in the communities you're working with in Lynn, when people are expressing their concerns, they're doing so because they're not seeing their representatives or the folks they favor or even themselves on your channels. And you're saying that they're not seeing themselves there because they're not taking the opportunity to, you're extending yourself to them. Yeah. So the people who are getting FaceTime with you all are coming to you or are accepting your extensions. You're not necessarily saying, hey, okay. So you're not playing favorites in that way.
No, we don't. So like our guy that's responsible for contacting everybody, whenever he sends an invite or any type of information that he needs from them, he sends them all emails and he makes sure he keeps the receipts. Just so that if anybody tries to come and say to him, I didn't receive this, he can show them, I sent it to you this day. I sent it to you this day. I followed up with you this day. I called you this day. So he was doing all that. And it was just so many people still, like, even like before the deadline, he made an effort to call them or email them, just did any type of form of communication he did. We even sent out newsletters to them, to their homes. And there's no way that they could say they never received anything because everything was sent out to them. But they do this thing where they want to be a victim or they want to say they're not the media. You know, it's the media's fault. Blame the media. When all else fails, it's blame the media.
Blame the media. Yeah. Interesting. And it's the challenges, and I share this with people even in separate types of work, right? The challenge is trying to push past the history of the media actually constructing images and narratives that are problematic. And so, thinking about it from a legal perspective, if you will, the burden of proof is on folks like yourself in the media to show that you're not going to be those types of people, which leads me to my next question. What does activism look like in the media? Thinking about your role as news director or anybody who you find yourself in relationships with, coworkers wise, it's easy to say what activism looks like as a teacher, for example. Maybe it's changing the curriculum in a certain way or spreading a certain type of message. But in the media, what does activism look like, or is there a place for
it? There's definitely a place for media. Quickly, just also to that other point with the media and controlling the narrative, but there are some outlets that are just ridiculous though. I'm not going to act like there aren't outlets that are ridiculous, that they put out stuff that's just, that pretty much shows you, okay, these guys are kind of there's a lot of racially insensitive media outlets. Of course. Let me say that. So those are still out there, and that just goes with the long line of history with who owns them, because a lot of the people behind the scenes are billion-dollar white guys, to be honest.
Gotcha.
Or a billion-dollar company owned by white guys. But
gotcha.
There's definitely a place. There's definitely a place in activism for media. You see it with certain independent media groups.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And also with media that are diverse. One of the biggest issues with with media is the lack of diversity and not having the faces that can be able to cover certain stories. So if you look at certain media outlets, The Athletic, if you look at the Black News Channel, those are kind of, you can say those are activism, because they don't report with any type. There's nothing, the corporate behind them, it's not going to affect what they do or the stories they could tell there, because those type of outlets, The Athletic focuses more on sports, but it gets more in tune with try to get in detail with the players. But the Black news networks, and there's other networks like that. CNN sometimes does it, depending who's covering it. But they have the sources. They can do it, and you got to see the stories. There's certain stories that maybe will be covered by those networks that you don't see. Like for instance, what just happened with the young man that they just found his body. the one I think from Indiana or something like that. I forget his name. He was missing. He was missing for a while, and the family was looking for them, and his story came to light because of the young lady that went missing, and they found her body.
Right.
Yeah, so that story kind of came along, and more local outlets were pushing the district attorney to the police, and and they ended up and the body was found.
Sure.
And then through that, just hammering they found the body, and then the body was found it was found way beforehand, but the family was never informed. And then the family had to get second autopsy reports and stuff just to find out what happened to them. And the story behind that was gruesome, but without the activism of the local journalists or the local media outlets, that would have never happened.
Right.
Like, pretty much. In other words, the activism is in the local media, not the national. Everything it's in the local media does more with stories than the national media just picks up everything afterwards. So
that's commonplace with a lot of stuff. Even if you think about local as state, for example, and you'll know this even in the political climate. Like it's your state representatives. If your concerns within your state, then it's your state representatives who you want to be focusing on, and those, of course, as we know, have the least amount of voter turnout versus like the national ones.
And for us, we do a lot of work with the community leaders. So I think we're community TV, so we got more leeway to do certain things than other news outlets. But with us, there's so many. We help promote the activism that goes on in the community.
Right.
So we get the opportunity because we get to bring these people in to come in and talk to them, or we go to their events to talk about them. And it's not showing any type of bias, because if it's something that we find to be a little sketchy, we're just not going to do it.
Of course, yeah. No, makes sense. Brother Mook, I got one last question for you, man, and then we will take this home. I want to read some quotes for you, if I might.
Yes, sir.
Protect Black women.
Oh, yes.
Black women are dope.
You know it.
Date
you
Black
see the
women.
shirts, right?
Sound familiar, right? These are all shirts you own. What's the responsibility of Black men in relation to Black women? I mean, what message are you telling us here? And what's the responsibility of Black men to themselves?
Black men get criticized a lot. Some warranted, some unwarranted. Sure. But one of the biggest criticism is their lack of protection for Black women and what happens to Black women. And I just feel like, as a person that, I was raised by a lot of Black women. Sure. Not only my mom, but my cousins, my friends' mothers, all that. So I feel like, me personally, I just feel like I have to stand up for them, because they are pretty much the most they're the most disrespected out of any group of people. Right. And we seen the disrespect to them as far as the workplace. Black women, it takes forever some don't even move up.
Right.
Just because of their Black women, even though they could be smarter than whoever's ahead of them, but they don't even move up.
You shared a story of your mom not getting the job.
Yeah.
Right.
Healthcare wise.
Healthcare is huge.
There's so many Black women that have died because negligence from doctors.
Yep.
They'll tell the doctors
about higher pain tolerance is the stereotype.
Yeah.
Yep.
They do that. And in the business world too, it's just like they're not taken as serious. So I think throughout history, we've seen that Black women are the foundation to everything. They're probably the strongest women on earth, and they do a lot, not only for themselves and not only for Black men, but also any other race. Like, you think about it, whenever you see another race being, being picked on or being a lot of blame put on them, who stands up for them? It's normally either Black people or Black women that'll stick up for them, no matter the situation. So I think as us, we should be more. We should protect them more. That's my thing. We should worry about their safety more, because we have these incidents of Black women going missing and just poof, going missing, and nobody knows what happens to them, right? So
without a doubt,
it's just crazy.
I seen a comment one day, excuse me, where somebody said, you just talked about Black folks stepping up in a certain way. I seen a comment where somebody said, Black folks are going to include themselves right out of existence, because of how inclusive we tend to be with other communities. And there are some theories on that. I mean, one might argue, and this is one I tend to be in conversation with, this idea that whiteness, if you accept whiteness as a state of mind, right, that folks like Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois and Malcolm X and Baldwin were talking about this idea of whiteness being a state of mind, right? Then what Black folks really want is whiteness, and not because they want to be white, right? I'm not talking about being a white person. I'm talking about when you think about how the United States of America came to be, the power structure, right? And then the development of that power structure on whose backs. I'm not talking about whose land was taken, which were indigenous lands, right? That would be a different conversation, also worthy of having. But when you think about the 1776 and on, the formation of the United States of America really built on the backs of enslaved Africans, right? Black folks want that, right? So the sense of inclusion is, let's not rattle the boat so much where we can no longer have a piece of this pie. And really, that's our pursuit of happiness, is that. And that's where the critique needs to be, because it might be more appropriate to reframe that narrative, right? And so I think you have something powerful there. And Toni Morrison once was saying, I'm paraphrasing here, she was talking about how she cannot imagine a Black woman having so much hate to where she would behave in the way that white women behaved, like back in the day in the 60s, for example. Well, she can't imagine a Black woman spitting on a child on the school bus, or getting off the school bus going to school, or saying some extremely hateful things in that way. Right? Because you're talking about Black women stepping up even for other races. It just reminded me of that.
Yeah, and you could even go further than that. Go back to slavery. What happens when the white lady get mad?
Right.
She get mad because her husband looking at the Black woman. Right. What's gonna happen? She gonna get her whipped or do something to her. So it's just, because I was watching. Don't even ask me why. I was watching Django the other day, and
I remember
when
it's in all of it. 12 years, everything.
Yes, it's just the stuff that happens in the world. And I mean, when did Black women get their right to vote?
Don't get me started on that, because that question, right? That question is right. The answer people want to give you is 1920 for the 19th Amendment, but that wasn't for Black women. That was for white women.
You
know what I mean?
I think you told me about this beforehand. That is another thing, right? It took them forever to get their right to vote. Then you got the whole affirmative action stuff, which I don't even think applied to them.
Listen, we can go down this road, for sure. But we got to wrap this up, because, but you're right on target. There was a statistic. There was this old study I saw. I can't remember the platform now. If I remember it, I'll either link it here or I'll send it to you personally. And it just talked about just the dating game, sort of like apps and online dating. And what you learn there is that Black women, according to the statistics, are the least desired. They get the least amount of responses back.
Yeah,
but they lead all racial groups, men or women, in terms of reaching out to folks for like interest. So so I'm trying to say is Black women are more likely to reach out and to kind of spark a relationship, and record numbers than any other race, but they're also the least desired. In other words, they get the least amount of responses in general, right? And so
I know what study you're talking about. I definitely heard about that one before too.
Yeah, it's shameful that society paints this picture, and it's definitely something that needs to call to attention. So I see your shirts.
And then we could just move on. We could move on to probably the last 10 years of there's a plethora of things that can't be discussed within an hour with the stuff that happened to Black women. But it's like it'd have to be like a special, because we can go on and on and on, and then the lack of effort from the powers that be to even address the issue, because they just brush it aside.
Right? Exactly. Well, Mook, Matt, I appreciate you being on. I think those shirts and other shirts you have and other ways you use your voice and position are wonderful examples of how you can be an activist in the media, but also educate at the same time and provide space for, if nothing else, a difference of opinion to be expressed, right? And to honor that particular element.
Lastly, before you got out of here, I want to tell you, being a member of the media, do you know you need to get more? We need to find a way to get more Black folks in the media. I do college basketball, and let me tell you, when I go, because I covered the Northeastern in Boston College, Northeastern, I'm literally the only Black male media member there. And Boston College, when I was there, I've counted. There's been probably like 2 or 3 media members there. It was me and this one guy from the Boston Globe that I know. It's me and him, and then I think there was like one other person. But the one time I saw more than 2 Black media members at the Boston College game was when Duke came to town.
Oh wow!
But besides that, man, it's bad.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, man. We should shout out. I had it on here to make sure I got to it. I wanted to shout out at least the National Association for Black Journalists, right? NABJ.
Yes, sir.
Where you find yourself quite frequently. I see you in there.
Yes,
Isaiah Thomas, Angela Yee, a few other.
Sanaa Lathan. It's in Vegas next year, man. It's in Vegas next year.
Indeed, you'll be on my side of the coast.
Pull up.
I don't know, man. I got 1,000 things going on. But we'll touch base.
Yes, sir.
Touch base, man. But Mook, thanks so much for being on, brother.
Hey, man, appreciate it.
Before I let you go, where can people get in touch with you, man? Publications, websites, at social media, anything?
Mukala _K, Instagram and Twitter. You'll see a lot of stuff. I post a lot of stuff there. If you want to email me, Kabongo, KABONGO @lyntv.org. If you want to chop it up, all that stuff. But Twitter, Instagram, I'm frequent on there. So check me out there.
Fantastic, folks. Mook, again, thanks. I appreciate you. I know the time difference has you later than I am, so I appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Folks, Sherrod Robbins, Mukala Kabongo. You're on the chopping block at visceralchange.org.